Happy New Year's and welcome back to A Creatively Crafted Life. This is Melanie and Laura, and today we're bringing you an oldie but a goodie. Yes, we are pulling out the Pearl-Ex. I'm not sure if you actually have any Pearl-Ex, or maybe you have perfect pearls in your cupboard, but that's what we're using today. So the first thing that we're going to focus on is this stamp set from Concord and 9th, and it's called, I think, a Turnabout stamp, and it's a little bit unique. It's not... what's the right word? It's unique to Concord and 9th.
Oh, okay.
And basically what you want to do is you want to take the stamp out of the package, turn it around and line it up on the packaging. And this is really important. And you want to then place an X where they have an X on the packaging. And this gives you the center of the design.
So you actually mark the stamp.
Yeah. So it's important you use like a Sharpie marker.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to do it every time. And then you want to take a piece of scrap paper. I think I used a 6x6 piece, and you just want to draw a diagonal from one corner to the next so that you form a big X. And this is going to be what they call your turntable. And you're going to attach your cardstock to this so that you can turn it around in your stamp positioning tool, and the design will repeat itself, but it repeats it in such a way that it looks different every time you stamp it.
So, and the numbers are...
Yeah, so that's just to kind of keep track of which way I positioned them in the stamp positioning tool, because what we're going to do is we're going to stamp, pull it away, do some work with it, and then put it back, and I was going to lose track of which way it was, so I just thought it'd be easier to number it. So here's where you should line the X on your stamp to the X on the turntable.
And I guess it doesn't really matter which way you position it to start, right?
Exactly.
You just want to remember which way it was and just keep rotating
Exactly.
it? Or you're rotating the card, not the stamp.
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
And that's why...
See, my light bulb just went on.
And that's why a stamp positioning tool is super easy.
Yeah.
For this type of thing. Now, you can do it without, and I think Jennifer McGuire has a video on how to use one of these Turnabout stamps without using a stamp positioning tool.
So if we can find that video that Jennifer did, what Melanie was talking about, then we'll go ahead and we'll link it below so you can follow that.
So I just took some repositionable adhesive, put it on the back of my cardstock base that I'm going to be using for the card, and attached it to the turntable. And then I used the embossing powder tool just to take all the static off, because we are using powder products, and we're using Versamark and stamping the first iteration of the stamp. And then we're just going to pull it up, and we're going to use something called heat and stick powder, or that's at least what it is called from Stampin' Up. A Ranger has a version of it. I think it might be called sticky stuff or sticky embossing powder or something like that.
I think it's sticky embossing powder.
Yeah. So basically all it is it's a powder that when you heat it up like embossing powder, it turns into an adhesive.
I kind of have trouble using this. I've used both versions of it, and I don't know if I'm not heating it enough or if I'm heating it too much.
You're probably heating it too much.
Okay.
Yeah, because basically what it's called when it says heat and stick,
right,
it's like you heat it up just enough so that it gets tacky, because then you reheat it again afterwards, and that sets the powder to take the stickiness away.
Right.
So I'm just trying to be uber careful and clearing off all the extra powder and stuff like that on here. I mean, basically at the end of this project, this turntable is probably just going to go in the bin, the recycle bin. But if you want to preserve it for multiple uses, you could. I just found that it just was a mess by the time I was finished with it.
Yeah.
So here's the thing where you're going to use your glue gun to heat it, and you'll see, like, as soon as it turns, you have to move on. So you don't want to sit there and really heat it up super hot, because it will lose its stickiness.
So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
I was treating it like embossing. I mean, I knew the basic concept behind it, but I was leaving it heating for too long.
Right. So I'm using Pearl-Ex. Now, Pearl-Ex is different than Perfect Pearls, in case you do have Perfect Pearls in your arsenal. You can use it for this project. It would work exactly the same way. The only thing different is Perfect Pearls actually has a binder in it, so you can actually use it without some sort of adhesive. I think if you just spray it with water, it will activate and stick to paper, whereas Perfect Pearls or Pearl X, sorry, has no binder in it. So it'll just wipe off no matter what you do, unless you use something like heat and stick powder or glue or something like that. You may have seen a little bit of pink initially when I put it on here, and that's just because my brush wasn't clean. So this is a clear pot powder. Now, some of these Pearl X powders, they're called interference, and depending on what color background you put it on, the color could change.
Oh, okay. That's neat.
Yeah, so sometimes it may look pink on white, and then it'll look purple on
a dark color.
On a dark color. So they'll usually say like interference green, blue, or something like that. And depending on which way it goes, it can look one way or the other. And it's often when you look in the jar, they look white,
right.
Even though they're going to turn a color, on darker cardstock. Now I also used Swiffer cloths. I just cut it into smaller pieces and use that to wipe up the excess powder. I suppose you could try and siphon it back into that container, but it is super fine
Very
powder.
fine, yeah.
And you know what, to be honest, I've had this set for 10 years.
Goes a long way, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know if you'd ever finish it in a lifetime, unless maybe you dedicate yourself to just doing Pearl X powders. So we just put it back in the stamp positioning tool, and instead of putting it in position 1, we rotated it to position 2, and then just applied Versamark again, layered on top, added the Pearl X, heated it again, cleaned it up, and just repeated that 4 times. And so once this is done here, basically you have a fully completed background using 1 stamp set, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. So you did 4 different colors, right?
Yeah, I did 4. It's like a pink, a purple, a pearly color, and then the gold. I'm going to use a stitched rectangle die, and we're just going to trim that out a little bit so that when we place it on our card base, we've got a bit of a border. I'm also taking a hello die. All the information will be below as to what we're using in this hello die. I'm just going to cut that out of the panel. Really simple. And I felt it needed a little bit something, so I'm using some gray cardstock as a backing. And mainly it was because when I placed it on the white card base, which you're going to see here in a minute, it just felt too stark of a difference from the black to the white, and I thought the gray just kind of toned it down a little bit.
Yeah, it's the dark cardstock on top, right? It makes it pop almost too much. Yeah,
that's kind of what I felt. Yeah. And even with the hello popping through with the white, it just was like, whoa, very glaring. And so I thought the gray worked a little better. I popped the what do you call it? The die back into the piece that I cut out into the negative space, just so that I could use it to position the little inserts of the E and the O to get those in place. The other thing is, don't get rid of the hello. There's no reason why you can't use it to create another card.
Yeah, and it still has the pretty colors, right?
Exactly. And so if you wanted a really simple card, you could just mount that on like a neutral cardstock, solid color. You could run it through an embossing folder and then just add the sentiment on there and be done with it. So there is quite a bit of a white border on here, and I did that deliberately. Just to give, like I said, that contrast. And I don't know, it's a pretty simple card. Didn't take too long to create. And
the Pearl X gives it a nice little shimmer effect.
Yes. Now I will tell you, it does stick to everything. And even the heat and stick powder.
So that's going to do it for us this week. Be sure to check the description below for more info. Hit subscribe, and happy crafting!